Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now the other day I placed a bid on this PC on eBay. At £21 I thought it was an incredible bargain and I couldn't really understand why more people weren't bidding for it. Now as per the description, this system features a Pentium G2020 dual-core processor, 8 gigs of DDR3 RAM and a 1TB hard drive. Now the processor isn't the best in the world. It wasn't even the best when it came out in 2013, but considering that purchasing 8 gigs of RAM and a 1TB hard drive separately would be more than the cost of this entire PC, I thought it seemed like a pretty good deal and I had plans to upgrade it. But this video demonstrates why you should always do your research, and no matter how long you've been buying and selling PCs or testing out various components, there is still room for error. Very amateur mistakes as well, I should add. So I bid £21 for this system, and on the outside it just looked like a regular HP machine. I thought, yep, everything looks to be okay. As per the photos, the description was well written out and the PC arrived very well packaged. So I took it out of the box and I thought to myself, well, that's odd. I've never seen a power supply like this. I mean, I couldn't even see the power supply. At first I took a glimpse at the fan at the bottom and I thought maybe that's the power supply fan, but why is it mounted so close to the motherboard? I didn't really think too much more about it. I started filming this video and at that point I took the side panel off the case and yeah, it seems that we have a laptop essentially wrapped up in a micro ATX case. So yeah, this is why you should always do your research. This machine is an HP 600B and I could have easily looked that up before bidding, but there was about 2 minutes left on the counter. I was bidding on a few things that day and I didn't really have time to look into it too much before just placing the bid. I saw that it was cheap and I thought, right, let's go for it. I can add a graphics card, and if the power supply can handle it, well, maybe we can upgrade the processor as well. That might still be a possibility, but not only do we not have a power supply in here, apart from the laptop power supply that came with the machine I later discovered in the box, but we don't have a PCI Express slot for a discrete GPU either. So yeah, I don't really know why I'm making this video, other than the fact to point out that no matter how much experience you've had with PCs, there is still room for amateur mistakes, and I just like to be honest with everything that I do here on this channel. You know, this was so easy to avoid, yet judging by a simple picture of the front of the case, I thought everything looked to be in order. Yeah, now I'm sort of thinking, well, where do we go from here? What I'm probably going to do, and what I would advise anyone in a similar situation to do, would be to remove the processor, the RAM and the hard drive, swap it into another 1155 motherboard and then just put that in a separate case with a different power supply, because after all, the price I paid, £21, which is roughly €23 or 27 US dollars for this PC, really isn't bad when you factor in the cost of the individual components. You know, we still got a good price for the RAM, the hard drive and the CPU, so it's not all bad. It was just a bit of a rush job that sort of halted my plans. I probably would have sold this on as an entry-level gaming PC for CSGO or something like that. I was going to stick a cheap graphics card in this thing. So it looks like I'll have to slightly alter my intentions here, but never mind. Nonetheless, I thought we could take a look at what this could do in terms of the integrated graphics and the G2020 processor. It's a G2020T, in fact, so it's the low power version. It came out in 2013. It has 2 cores, 2 threads, and to be honest, if you paired it with an entry-level graphics card today, it could probably still hold up in some scenarios, though it is going to be limited by those 2 cores. Can the Intel HD graphics do anything though? Well, let's try and get some sort of joy out of this terrible situation. But yeah, let's talk a little bit more in depth about what this thing can do as it is. I am such an idiot. So this PC shipped with Windows 7, an older operating system, yet one that is still among my personal favourites. Using Windows 7 with this system felt snappy enough. The 8 gigs of RAM certainly helped, but everyday browsing, things like that, ran absolutely fine. YouTube, HD playback, everything like that was absolutely fine, and this really would be an ideal system for someone's mum, put it that way. I then swapped out the hard drive for my SSD with Windows 10 and intended to run a few games. First of all, I ran the Cinebench R20 test. We got 300 or so points in that test, so it's not the worst CPU I've ever seen, and again under Windows 10 things performed smoothly enough for everyday usage, HD video playback, browsing Facebook for example. Yeah, it's going to be okay. The real test though was whether or not the Intel HD graphics could actually play games, and well, I was quite surprised by a couple of these results. The first game we tested was Call of Duty Black Ops. We actually ran through a multiplayer game here. This was actually during a combat training match though, so we were playing against bots on the Summit map. We started off with about 30 frames per second. During the game's loading we did drop to about 15-20 FPS, but as you can see here, when the game started we experienced a few more frame drops, but as we made our way toward this building, things started getting a little worse for wear. The frame rate soon picked up again however, and we were well on our way. As you can see, the Intel HD graphics are maxing out at 100%, although the processor really isn't too far behind. Yeah, for Call of Duty Black Ops, well, you're going to be able to get away with 30 FPS at the lowest settings and 720p resolution, which honestly is quite surprising. Let's not forget that this is a 2-core, 2-threaded CPU as well that lacks hyper-threading. In Counter-Strike Global Offensive, well, we were able to see between 40 and 60 frames per second. That is my estimate anyway, because at this point Fraps and MSI Afterburner simply refused to display. I restarted the PC a couple of times, restarted both of the aforementioned programs, and I could not get a frame counter to pop up on screen. From my experience though with CSGO, this does certainly feel like 60 FPS with a few dips here and there, so it's a playable enough experience. We are running at 800 by 600, 640 by 480, did make things even smoother, but it is a little more blurry, a little more pixelated. 800 by 600 is fine, and you could probably switch to 720p as well using the G2020T. What's great about these low power processors is that they don't get too hot either, so the CPU fan stayed relatively quiet. Yeah, Hitman 2 was just a disaster. 720p is the lowest in-game resolution we can set, and I think on average we probably saw about 4 FPS. There was a moment when we hit 5, so yeah, whether or not the difference between 4 and 5 is significant or not, I don't think so for many people. But yeah, Hitman 2 certainly wasn't playable. I was surprised at how good it still looks at low, but yeah, the frame rate was just awful here. Last but not least, I then tried out Crysis at 720p with the low settings. We were seeing about 30 to 40 frames per second. Sometimes the frame rate would spike up towards 50, but again, the Intel HD graphics are maxing out here. If you want to play Crysis, you're absolutely desperate and you've got a G2020T with no external graphics card, then you could probably get away with it, but aside from that, yeah, it's not going to be a very good experience. We actually covered Crysis in the last video with the 8600 GTS when we put together that Crysis build, and I went into a little more depth regarding the graphical settings there on low-end hardware. Here, it's okay, it runs, it's not too laggy, but it's not the most enjoyable experience in the world. I want to reiterate my plans for this machine. I'll probably take the processor, RAM and hard drive out of it and then just use it in a different case, because if I can get a bit of money back for the case and motherboard, well, it all goes towards saving more money on an entry-level build, and I'd love to be able to see what the G2020T can do when paired with a graphics card. So hopefully you can join me then. Thank you very much for watching this one though. I am an idiot. Leave a like if you agree that I'm an idiot. Leave a dislike if you didn't enjoy this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. Hopefully I'll see you all, because I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't come back after this monstrosity.